All right, it's time to talk Tennessee football right here on Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. We bring in Charlie Burris. You can catch him on Orange and White Report. Charlie, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me back, Mark.
Of course, always love to get the word from Charlie on his beloved Vols. So, Jeremy Pruitt versus Butch Jones. So you've seen a little bit more of the two to contrast the two through at least spring practice. Your thoughts about the Jeremy Pruitt regime and how things are run maybe a little bit differently?
It's definitely been a breath of fresh air right off the top. Just seeing things run a completely different way, and really, I guess a tighter ship, but just different, really, in a lot of ways. I guess it's yet to be seen whether it's quote unquote better. But just the coaches kind of treat the players in a different way, and the interactions are to me more what I would expect from a coach who really knows what he's doing. And specifically the interaction of Jeremy Pruitt with the media compared to Butch Jones has just been miles and miles better, because he's actually honest. He just kind of talks like a normal person. He doesn't try to talk over your head like Butch Jones tried to a lot of time. Doesn't talk around stuff. When he doesn't want to talk about something, he just says, I don't want to talk about that. He doesn't have to come up with some kind of nonsense. But otherwise, I mean, it's really been nice. We haven't been able to see just a whole lot. But I think in general, as far as I can tell, as much as you can take away from spring practice, I think things should be trending up with Pruitt on the sidelines compared to Butch.
So there's the sales approach versus the nuts and bolts approach. There's the difference right there, I guess, bottom line. So in terms of the football team, Charlie, what do we know right now about the Volunteers that we didn't necessarily know 15, 16 days ago?
That's an interesting question. I guess really some of the structures of these position groups, because they've really done some fiddling around with where some of these guys are playing. You had, I guess I don't want to get too specific with some of these just because it's boring to a more general audience, really. But like you had a linebacker or a defensive back that moved to running back. It was playing. You got defensive linemen playing, practicing with the offensive line. They've done some really interesting stuff with those position changes. And they may not be permanent. Jeremy Pruitt hasn't said. I think specifically with the defensive lineman going to the offensive line is just in complete dire straits. It's just a really rough position right now. Butch Jones left that cupboard absolutely bare. And Pruitt, I think, is making contingency plans, saying, hey, we might need you guys at some point during this season to play on the offensive line. So we need you to, at the very least, be ready. But otherwise, some things like that. But past that, there hasn't been a whole lot. I think this team really, and I think Pruitt would say the same, is sort of who we thought they were. Butch Jones kind of made them, they weren't incredibly mentally tough. They had a lot of growing to do in terms of strength and conditioning. And new strength and conditioning coach Craig Fitzgerald has, from what I've seen, taking this team leaps and bounds in just a short amount of time down that road. And things like that just you would sort of expect from a new coach. But just in general, I mean, this team, things could be rough. They're not in awesome shape, as Tennessee fans might hope they would be. But you haven't seen any of the freshmen, haven't seen most of the grad transfers that are kind of come in. So by fall practice, things are still going to change, and maybe some of these position changes will be more set in stone. We'll see what happens.
Now, as soon as you say, Charlie, that there will be possibly defensive linemen who have to switch to offense and play on that side of the football, it's easy to be alarmed by that. But I think that happens more readily than we would believe. We tend to think, oh, it's a big SEC school. They've got everything in place. They got everything in order. Everybody knows where they're going to play. Everything's planned out. They know what they've got on the roster. They're fully deep at these various positions. But these teams generally do scramble during the off season to figure out who should go where, and are we going to be better if we switch this guy from a DB to a running back or vice versa? And there's a bit of scrambling there. It's not as buttoned down as people might think it is, top to bottom. That's why there's a lot of time between now and September 1st. Speaking of which, who would you really love to see break out this season? Who do you think could be those? Because there's obviously going to be a lot of opportunities for young guys to get their shot.
Right off the top, it has to be one of these quarterbacks. I think that goes almost without saying, whether it's going to be Jarrett Garantano, who is the expected starter, but you have a grad transfer in Keller Chris coming in as a kid from Stanford, transferred from Stanford to Tennessee for 1 year of eligibility. And hopefully he's at worst going to push Garantano. One of those guys, whoever plays, really, I think it's going to be Garantano. As of right now, I need to see Keller Chris play. He's not yet at Tennessee, so I'm not totally sure exactly what his skill set looks like. But one of those guys, I mean, that could change the entirety of this team and how they perform this season. Just having your I guess the CEO of the offense of sorts really step up. But past that, I mean, as I said earlier, that offensive line is just in really rough shape. And what I would love to see is one of the offensive linemen that is not Trey Smith. If you don't know who Trey Smith is, he's going to be a sophomore, but he was an all-SEC player as a true freshman last year, was one of the top players in America when he came in, I guess, over a year ago. And I mean, he's just this phenomenal talent, just absolutely a guy who is kind of not once in a generation, but once in a decade sort of offensive lineman, just really, really good, can carry the unit on his back. And someone supplemental to him stepping up would be huge, because you've had some guys like a Chance Hall, who's a veteran, but he's been injured, but hopefully he'll be back, ideally. And maybe someone like that stepping up would just be huge. Now, that's just on the offensive side of the ball. There's plenty of people on defense. You need a guy like Shy Tuttle on the defensive line to break out. That would be giant. And just someone on that defensive line step up as a leader. Nigel Warrior, who's already looked really good. He's a defensive back, a safety, who's looked awesome. I mean, he has talent for days. But he has to really come into his own, become a team leader, really embrace his role as to who he is, because ultimately he's going to be a sophomore, but he's going to be someone that guys just look to, because he's kind of been there, done that, played as a freshman, and has looked awesome. So that would be, I guess that's really at the few different levels of the team there where I think I would like to see breakout stars, but of course I genuinely, I'm just not sure exactly where that production is going to come from quite yet.
You may know a little bit more this time on Saturday. Take it about 48 hours forward, and maybe you'll have some different opinions, and we'll be able to get back together and get your recap on the orange and white game. Charlie Burris, Orange and White Report. See, it goes, there's synergy right there. It's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to this orange and white game. It's interesting. They're doing something different with it. This is one of the easily probably the biggest change that I would say Jeremy Pruitt brought to the entire spring practice process, was the way that he's doing the spring game. Typically, as long as I've ever been in touch with Tennessee football, which is essentially my entire life, they've had the spring game, and it comes with an autograph session before, and you get to meet the players, and it's called Fan Day. And fans get to come and do all these things. They've actually nixed that this year. That's not happening, but they're going to make it basically like a game day. They're having the Vol Walk, which happens every single game day during the fall, where the team walks into Neyland Stadium through all the fans, and then they're playing the game like an actual game. Butch Jones did it like a practice. He would have Circle of Life and do all this kind of nonsense, throwing drills and different things with the quarterbacks. And I think Jeremy Pruitt's cutting all that out and just making it like a game. It's just going to be straightforward. You score 7 points when you score a touchdown, and orange versus white. And it's going to be really interesting to see, because it is a complete flip from Butch. I mean, Butch, he had this weird scoring system that made no sense. No one still really knows what it means or what it was. And that's that's going to be a real change and something to really look out for if you're just looking for spring games to watch. I think Tennessee, even compared to most other teams in the SEC, is kind of doing a different thing in that way, trying to make it like an actual game. I think Pruitt just wants to see where his team is at in terms of game day focus. So be looking out for that. And yeah, I'd be more than happy to come back and kind of discuss what we see.
Charlie, I've got to think that after what was it, 5 years, 4 seasons of Butch Jones?
5 seasons.
Yeah. 5 seasons of Butch Jones, that anyone misconstrued to have said anything close to circle of life, those 3 words in that order on campus, there would be something maybe terribly done to them.
Yeah. I mean, it's really become almost a crime just with anything that Butch Jones used to say. Like it's become taboo to say the word individual because Butch, that was his favorite word, was individual. This individual did this and such, and it makes me cringe just hearing someone say that now. But yeah, Jeremy Pruitt is bringing that kind of breath of fresh air, changing that. God bless him. It's much more enjoyable to go to a press conference now, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm really excited. I'm honestly really excited about the future of this squad and excited to see where they go.
All right, Charlie, we hope the process of the exorcism continues on Saturday at Neyland Stadium. Charlie, we appreciate you stopping by and always enjoy the conversation on Tennessee football. And yeah, would love to have you back to discuss what you saw on Saturday.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Mark.